On, there it is. Is that better? It's. I mean, it's got to be right in my face. Okay. All right. So I do have a correction on the minutes for March 20th. And I'm going to read you the sentence that is it. Okay. That was a. Okay. Is it? Well, wait. So I do have a correction on minutes. Okay. I'm talking. I'm going to read you the sentence that. Okay. That was a.
We muted it. Yeah, that's what I'm
Is it? Oh, wait. Okay.
He says something and then like 5 seconds.
Yeah, delay. No, I'm a ventriloquist. I'm a ventriloquist. Patricia, could you go get me the sign up sheet on there? It's on it quick. Okay, so the meeting will be called to order, and the first order is the approval of the March 20th minutes. And I ask, huh? Well, I've got some you know me. I always thank you so much. I always have a correction, but this is kind of important. And it's in the second under staff reports. It's under the second paragraph. And it's something that Dr. Jones said that I think was misunderstood, but I'm going to correct it. And I think the lieutenants and everybody at animal control will also understand that this was misunderstood. It says Dr. Jones added, this is about doing rabies specimens testing, okay, because I'd asked about it. It said Dr. Jones added that the test is a tissue sample that is sent in to see if an animal potentially has rabies and if the animal needs to be euthanized. You don't do that. The animal is euthanized when you send the sample in, correct? Back there? Yes. Okay, so we can correct that because I know that Dr. Jones knows that that's not correct, okay? But it's not my quote. It's just that that's not how it's done. Okay, and so it should read that the animal is either euthanized when it comes in, or it's then euthanized and the head is sent off to determine whether it's got rabies. There's no like a tissue test that allows you to know whether you have to put it to sleep or not. And then the other question that I have, okay, we can go ahead. Yeah, I think that's it. And that's all I have on this one. Allows you to know when you have to put it to sleep or not. It's just a delay.
All right, thanks.
Okay, I don't have to repeat that, do I? Okay. Okay, wasn't very long. Okay, and so do I entertain a motion to approve the minutes as seconded? Who wants to second? All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay. Then we're going to go on to the May 15th meeting. Okay. Anyone have any questions on that? Anything changed on that? Okay, I'm going to just change one thing. On Diana Tedlock's public comment, the very last word in the sentence on the first paragraph, it says that she wanted to terminate with POTUS and renegotiate with VESH, but VESH is not EDSH, it's VESHW. So we need to change that. So that needs to be changed to appropriately do that. Any other questions or changes? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve the May 15th meetings. Second. All those in favor, raise your hand. The bad thing is on these minutes, we don't have a quorum. So, huh? No, Kelly's not here.
Didn't we decide?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Four.
Yes. So that's okay? Yeah, East of full board. Okay, so those are approved. The next thing that we're going to do is a housekeeping item, and this is with Jan Jarman, and she's going to go over the CORA and the COMA training. No, you're not going to? I couldn't hear.
Wasn't asked to do. It was.
Oh, okay. Well, then we don't need to do the CORA COMA.
Next time.
Okay, next time. Oh, okay, I'm good. Okay, I did that. Okay, then we're going to proceed on to the staff reports, and this will be Lieutenant Neinstead. Go ahead and where's the? No, he's got, there's a handheld right there.
It's being live streamed. You want to come up here to where?
Well, let me pack up my stuff here.
Have a seat.
Oh, thank you. Sure.
You don't have to stand.
Okay. All right. Is this on? Can you hear me, everybody? Everybody? Okay. All right. So I'll just go over, you have copies of the statistics that I supplied. Just going over them. If you start in January, you can see regarding stats, we'll just start. Page 1 covers dogs. Page 2 is dogs and cats combined. Page 3 is cats. But as you look at the stats, but I'm just kind of referring here. As you can see, euthanasia started to decrease from the beginning of the year. There was a decrease through January through April, starting in January through April. And then you can see the reasons for each one of those below that's given. One thing I want to point out, if you look on the reasons, there's a category that's been added for what I'm calling medical KDA. And the reason for that, I think everybody is aware that state regulation prevents the transfer of sick animals with certain illnesses such as kennel cough, parvo, heartworm, just to name a few. So based on that, there's an inability to transfer animals on those. So I wanted to distinguish that between an animal that had something along those lines versus an animal that, say, has in the past an animal that would be listed as medical. Could be things like that, but it could also be that it has a skin rash or it has hair loss or it has an ear infection. Well, that's medical, but that wouldn't prevent it from being transferred. So I wanted to keep track of the difference because there is a distinct difference. So that began right around March 6th. So we went back to that time to look through our records to see what would have qualified, because we just started this in mid-June and added that category officially. So we went back through beginning about March 6th when that started, all the way through mid-June. So we tried to look through all the records, and what we did is anything that we could find that we felt confident that we identified was in fact qualified as a KDA medical, but we didn't have that category. We listed that as KDA medical. If there was any doubt about it, we just left it as medical. And that plays more that comes more into play when you look at the cat statistics. I imagine there's probably more in there that were that because that's generally the medical reason you're going to have on them is going to be from that. But we didn't want to. We couldn't be 100% sure, so we left it at medical. So. But anyways, we added that, and that's what that's about. That's why you're seeing that now. But just looking at May and June, so there was an increase there in the overall percentage. But in May, 31.25% of all of those euthanasias were related to KDA medicals, and in June, 42% were related to that. And if you remove that percentage out of the mix, the percentage overall then would be a 12.92% in May and 15.05% in June. And during that time, and we continue, it's the summertime. Obviously, intakes are always high this time of year. Animals are out as usual. And so you're going to see the higher intakes in the warmer season, which we're in the middle of that. So that begins roughly in May and runs all the way through the summer, somewhat peaking probably in September-ish. But so we're in the midst of that. We've been averaging daily 30 to 32 animals daily intakes with 16 to 18 dogs and about 14 to 16 cats a day. So the intakes have continued to be high, and those numbers even for July are still running that same amount as they were previously in those months. And then I briefly talked a little bit about cats, and just as like I said, generally what accounts for that with cats is going to be something that would have been KDA related, but I kind of already explained that. But just want to make sure I don't miss anything out here for you on my notes. Yeah, that's pretty much it on those stats. To try to explain that a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, that's at 12.92% in May, 15.05% in June. Mhm.
Dogs that require you to sleep.
Oh, correct. Yeah, if you remove the KDA and the dangerous dogs, so the dangerous dogs, once that's been deemed, if it goes through the appeal process, it's up, and if it's upheld or if it's not appealed and the decision stands, but if it's determined to be a dangerous dog, that's an animal that I can't transfer out of the facility, and that's just something the city, I don't know if Jan wants to speak to that at all, but that's just an animal that can't leave the facility once we've reached that point. But if you take the KDA and the dangerous dog out of the mix, the numbers overall look more at 13% for dogs and 8.47% for cats. So there's not really any. The medical part is for that, not the dangerous. We don't deem on cats, but so I mean that is a statistic that when I report them, they're being reported as the overall numbers. But what encompasses those overall numbers is then broken down further. And you can see those. And then moving on, where did I put it? I'm not sure I gathered that up. The next set of stats from the bite stats, the bites and attack stats, really just looking at those, the number of dog bites and the number of dog attacks have actually decreased over the last little time period. There's a slight increase in the actual number of bites between June and May, but overall the trend started to go down, not much, but a little bit. And then the same with the attacks that, again, trended down quite a bit from April, which is interesting only because there's obviously a lot of people out and a lot of animals out this time of year. However, looking at potentially dangerous dogs as well as dangerous dogs through that process of review and deeming those numbers are down as well. More than likely, they're going to go up just slightly, and that's only because we have several that we still have to review, and they haven't been reviewed as of yet. So those numbers overall may go up, but there's just interesting that at least as of June, there was a little bit of a decrease in those numbers, which again, as it gets warmer, I would have expected those to go up, but they've actually either stayed the same or trended just slightly down. And then other than that, that's it for the stats. If you had any questions or. Yes, sir.
On our key here, it says welcome. So officially welcome you.
Thank you.
It says, what can we do? Only an advisory board. Sometimes I wonder if they listen to us, but what can we do to help you over there? I mean, we could talk to our city councilor or our mayor, whoever appointed us, and try to push them in a direction. So I guess you don't have anything right now, but if you
I will.
something, please reach out. That's what we can do as an advisory board. That's all we can do.
I will absolutely put some things together and notify you all and would appreciate that. The one other thing I don't know if I touched on the KDA medical classification that I added. And then the other thing that I was going to touch on, or if you wanted me to wait, I don't know if it was in the agenda or not.
What would that be?
Um, so you just want to talk about that? We'll just lead into that. Is that
Yeah.
fine? Okay. So a couple of issues there. So with the shelter being full at the time and intakes being high, um, I was looking for some kind of strategy to help assist that along a little bit. For just less than a year, I believe it was late November, early December of last year, WAS. So the state requires a 3-day hold on stray animals. When an animal is brought into the shelter, they require a 3-day hold before an animal could. Then that's to allow for the owner to come forward and claim the animal. And then after that 3-day period, then that animal is allowed to be transferred. So late November, early December, WAS went to a 5-day, and there's the reason that occurred was because um, previously there wasn't an understanding or anything that basically a business day was a business day for us, and so we were counting business days as such, and we're open 7 days a week, so we were counting that. But the state actually put a definition to it, and they defined it as state business days. So what that then became, state business days were Monday through Friday. Saturdays and Sundays don't count, and neither do federally recognized holidays or any other holidays issued by the state. So those days do not count towards that. And as always, the first day of intake doesn't count. So the animal comes in today, being Wednesday, the first day doesn't actually count until tomorrow on Thursday. But with KDA, and the state saying, okay, well, we're not going to count weekends since those aren't official working days for the state, all that. So to eliminate potential error on a whole date, that's the reason we went to the 5-day, was to make sure that we covered the time appropriately and we didn't have any issues with, transferring an animal out errantly and not abiding by the actual 3-day hold. So it was a protective mechanism, which is fine. But in the midst of where we are right now with a lot of daily intakes and a full shelter, and trying to streamline a process, a couple of things came to mind. And the first was, well, if we go back to the 3-day, so that we can abide by the state regulations on that. And I sent out an email about that, and I explained how that works. I give a little bit of an example, such as a couple of different ones, just so people could recognize what the difference is between coming in on a certain weekday versus encompassing the weekend. But if an animal was to come in on July 15th in this example, it would be eligible for transfer out on July 19th. But if it came in on July 19th, based on the weekend being in there, then the first day eligible for transfer would be 7/25. So that just to give an idea of the days and what we're talking about and why, but shortening that little bit of length to help streamline to move animals through. And to eliminate the possibility of error, it just simply was, I mean, you could try to look for different ways to do things electronically, and sometimes you can find those and sometimes you can't. Sometimes your software will do that and sometimes it won't. Sometimes you can't beat just going back to paper and pencil type thing, which is somewhat what we did. So we came up with a calendar that runs for the year, just as an example. And roughly, all you need to know is what today's date is as your intake date, and we just calculated everything out for the entire year. So if your intake date was, for today's date, which I forget, is it the 16th? I believe it is 17th. So if the intake date, see, that's why you have this, you can refer to that. That way you can look at your watch and say it's the 17th, and then you can say, oh, okay, today's the 17th. So then that first day out that animal would be eligible would be the 23rd. So so when the officers are doing an intake, all they have to do is today's date, look at the next date, put that into the computer. It's calculated. It accounts for weekends. It accounts for holidays. It accounts for training days as well. So because those days wouldn't count since we're not operating. So that would be similar to a holiday. So it accounts for all that. So that way there's no mistakes and we don't by accident, do a transfer when we're not eligible to per the state guidelines. So that covers that to, try to do everything we can to make sure we mitigate that as an issue. And then the second part of that, the idea is on that date, we'll just use today's date as the example. So that first date out that it would be eligible of the 23rd, July 23rd. So currently, I might have animals that haven't been assessed, or I might have animals that have a tag on it from the Humane Society. And hearing from some folks about that, I talked with the folks here at the Humane Society, and so with that, I was like, well, if I do it and I shorten that length, the other thing I wanted to go with that is when we take in an animal, automatically, so we have a screen where we enter everything in, and there's a place for tags that you can enter a particular organization and put that in there. So the first one that pops up as an auto-generated is the Humane Society. And kind of in keeping with the first right of refusal that we've had with that agreement for that. But the moment, and I sent that out in the email so that everybody would understand, the moment that an animal comes in to the shelter, any rescue group or anybody who's interested in that animal can go through KHS Rescue and place a tag on that. And then it'll be put down in the order it was received. So then the idea is on that date that it's eligible for transfer, and in this case, that first date being July 23rd, then KHS, the Humane Society, would have that date to take that animal. If they aren't able to take that animal for whatever reason on that date, then it's just going to revert to the next on the list or the next on the list. If there's 3 people that have tagged it after KHS, then it goes to the next one on the list, and the next one until whichever group is able to take it as quickly as they can. And if the one, I'm not going to be able to right now, things have changed, we move to the next one to try to move that animal along and also get more animals basically shuffled out into the different organizations. Because when somebody sees a label on it that it's medical, and that's another reason I wanted to, I don't put out when I put out that daily email, I don't put the KDA medical ones on there, but if you see medical, so I wanted to put the definitions in there and the differences. If you see medical, then that could be a skin condition, that could be an ear infection. That's something that the animal is still transferable, but it's not, it just has an issue. So is someone willing to take that issue on? It has an ear infection, so there's going to be a little more work to it, maybe a little bit more money for antibiotics or what have you. And then we do have behavior, but there's levels of that, and there's still behavior animals that may not be adoptable candidates, but could go to a rescue and through a rescue. And so I want to make sure that those animals as well have that same fair chance. And so I want to explain that out so that it's not just automatically looked at and ignored, as well as the ones that have not been assessed. So if they haven't been assessed, but an organization, it says, okay, well, we'll go ahead and take that animal. Again, then put the tag on it, and then the same thing with resources. And resources, it just really is an animal that might possess a quality or trait, making it difficult to place them. The easiest example of that, and probably the most frequent one, is an elderly animal. And a lot of people don't want that because maybe they require more work or there's some. So, but I want people to understand that those might be some barriers, but they're eligible. And so that's not a particular negative or a negative tag. That's, just a category. So basically, I just sent that out so that everybody would understand, partly I'm trying to move more animals through, as well as I'm trying to work where I can get, rescue groups in line to take these animals as quickly as I can. And if KHS, at the moment can't be, they may have tagged it, but if they can't at the moment, we can also contact them and see about removing that tag so that it just depends where they're at. If they happen to be full or something, then, if they're not able to take an animal on a given date, it's up to the next. I don't want it to sit there, the animal to have to sit there longer than it has to. So I want it to be eligible to others. So that's just a little change. As far as the time frame, this is most definitely something I'm concerned with right now, just because of the high daily intakes. So it's warm right now. We're having that. When we get into the cooler season in the fall and then going into winter and those intakes start to drop off, You know, that's something, this isn't a hard and fast, this is the way it's going to be forever and a day. It's the way I feel that it's got to be right now to help move as many as I can. It's not necessarily shortening the amount of time an animal stays here, how I review those things, but it's something I'm trying to do to shorten the length of time that an animal has to be in there if I can move it faster. But as we move into a cooler season and maybe less intakes, that's something that, you know, I'm certainly willing to look at and go back to the 5 day. It's just not a hard and fast thing, but I'm still within the state guidelines, but I'm able to move animals quicker. But on a different circumstance later down the road, I might be able to, you know, change that back and that wouldn't be a problem. So it's something I'll have to evaluate as those things come up. Yes, sir.
So could you plug in August 29th, please?
What's August 29th? What's August 29th?
August 29th.
Yeah, this year.
Oh.
When would the?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Oh.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant I didn't have it plugged in there. So, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so like on August 29th, then that review date out would be, or that first day transferable out would be on September 5th.
So that 3 to 5 is like, that's all through the holiday. So that's why it's the 6th. So 3 to 5, so 90% of the time that 3 to 5 catches it. But like you said, on holidays and stuff,
Mhm.
6 days.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's factored in to cover that. Yes, absolutely. So because the holidays don't count, the weekends don't count, just Monday through Friday business days. And so then we have to factor when it came in today, and then we start the count tomorrow, but we don't count those days. And so, yeah, you'll have some that are longer like that because of that. Absolutely. Yeah.
I have several questions.
No,
Can we ask when you speak?
No,
on this subject?
no, no, just, we're gonna discuss it within the board and then we will bring it out, okay? I have a question or at least a statement to make in that, shortening the time span to 3 days. Do I have my mic on? Okay, shortening the time span to 3 days actually is beneficial for the animal. It gets the animal out so that someone who wants to, a rescue who wants to take it, or the Humane Society that wants to take it can get it out of there sooner. Allowing that animal to spend less time in the shelter is very beneficial. In fact, when I went to the Kansas State, remember Lieutenant Purcell about when K-State was up here and they did a review, they said the longer you have to keep them, the more danger they're put into. And I'm hoping that in the upcoming legislation that we can redefine what a business day is so we can go back to the 3 or 4 day, so we don't have to hold these dogs an extra 2 days when and if they have a way to get out, okay? And this will definitely affect those dogs that someone is waiting for, but then they have to wait for 2 more days. And my goodness, those 2 days could cause them to come down with kennel cough, and the kennel cough would then be over with. Okay, so it is to our, so I would suggest keeping that at least those dogs that come in Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday, that you, or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, that if you can get those out at 3 days, that is beneficial for those dogs. The dogs that come in from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on, they're not benefiting at all. Okay, they're being put into a dangerous time because they got to stay here longer. So I hope you maybe we can get the business day back to what a business day is for the organization instead of a state business day. I'm hoping to get that changed, hopefully. Yes.
It's state law. He's not gonna go, he knows now state law. He's not gonna go against it, right?
No, I'm not asking him to go against it. You're not going against it. He's not going against it by the 3 day, okay? But it's just 3 business days. He's not going to go against it.
Well, he is. Because you're saying you wanted to go to 3 days, and if the weekend's in there, he's gotta go to 5 per state law.
No, I understand that. I understand that. But what I'm trying to say is that this is something that a new lawyer came up with that came into KDA, and we're hoping, hopefully, within the next legislative session to get that changed and not, and that the definition for a business day is different than the state definition for a business
That
day.
starts in January.
We're hoping that it'll be taken care of. We're going to be working on that. I don't know, Elaine, if you are familiar with that or not.
My comment was another.
Okay. All right, okay. Any other comments?
So are you already working, contacting those?
We tried to do that before the legislative session was over and it didn't get accomplished.
If you guys are gonna talk, unless you're, you're. gonna-
Okay, they not here? I'm so sorry.
No. I can hear George on the recording, but I can't hear anybody else that's talked.
Okay,
Except
we'll
for-
start
except for,
passing around.
like you guys,
Okay.
if you have mics.
She can yell.
So,
I can talk.
that's,
Okay, so you did try to get it in last?
A group of people tried to get
Okay.
it in last and it didn't happen, but I have all the, faith in the world that we're gonna be able to get it done because what's happening is not good for the animals. What they did was not good for the animals, just like the KDA on communicable diseases.
Are we working with a lobbyist in Topeka on this?
Yeah.
Like, as a board, we cannot,
Oh,
because
you
the
know,
board
It's
is
not me.
sitting, oh, sorry, am I talking loud enough? Yes. Okay, so, but as individual citizens, we can talk to our legislators. But as far as a lobbyist, we can't, that's gonna have to be up to organizations that are legally permitted to do that. And so some of the rescues are able to do that. There is an organization, kind of a loose, grassroots group that does work with lobbyists and, so that grassroots group is kind of working on the legislative issues. And I had been doing some advocacy last session as far as talking to legislators. We're limited in what kind of collaboration we can do as a board because of COMA. So, I think probably the best thing that we can do is talk to the rescues and who are working on the KDA issue, and see how we can back them up as individuals. I mean, would that be, am I saying?
The city of Wichita is also interested. We've been meeting with partners on this. And we have lobbyists, and what happens is in the fall, we will take our proposed agenda to the council. And see if the council supports us moving forward as well. We're definitely in support of change. And I don't know exactly yet how much of a leadership role we'll take, but we are interested. So we're open.
Well, I guess I should have just asked instead of speaking on my knowledge, which may be incorrect. What are our limitations to what we as individuals can do on advocating?
As individuals, you can advocate. I think and that's great when it comes up to have as many people advocate as possible. But as far as pushing legislation forward, you're gonna need a group to do that.
Yeah.
So it'll either be the city or it'll be one of the big organizations. And I think we will at some point we'll decide who's going to be the main proponent of that. And then.
So when you say city, you mean city council?
City of Wichita, yes.
I want to correct myself. I didn't mean we as a board were going to work on that. I run a rescue and I am able to do that on my own along with KPA, Kansas Pet Animal, or KPA, Kansas Pet Advocates. And HSUS is involved in that. So there's a whole bunch of people that are involved in it, not this board itself, okay?
Council is concerned. Council has reached out to us about this and asked us to try to do something. There may come a time when we decide that the city isn't the best route to push it. It doesn't mean we don't want to and that we won't, but that's why we will meet with other groups to decide politically what is the strongest group to advocate for this. And then we'll be there to testify. If it's not us, we'll still be in support of it and testify.
Well, and I'm happy, I don't mind at all picking up the phone and calling legislators. I did that for a couple of weeks last session. I am happy to provide testimony in a hearing if need be. I've done that several times. So just, however, I know probably everybody on the board, however we can be of assistance. This is heartbreaking.
Very difficult. Okay. Okay, yes, stand up and introduce yourself. Or just, you can sit down, just introduce yourself.
Diana Tedlock. When will we be able to get the information be shared with them as a public meeting so we could see the statistics?
Yeah, so my plan for reporting, so just so everybody knows, when it comes to the webpage, like I don't have any access and I don't do that. But there are people within it, it's our public information office that updates those things. And so I've been working on, I want to try to basically just put them on there monthly. The same type of stats that I have here and all that stuff.
So can we get a copy of what you shared today with the different category?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
What we can, 1, 2,
And then I also wanted to ask about this 5 to 3 day hold. How does that impact? We originally had like a 7-day hold if an animal was chipped or tagged. So how is that impacting that?
So I haven't changed any thoughts on anything like that of shortening anything. As a matter of fact,
So if they're chipped, it's a 7-day straight hold?
it'd be a 6-day.
I think 6 day is what we operated at when I talked to my predecessor about that, but I don't have any intention of like holding to a hard and fast on something that's chipped. In fact, what I started doing with chipped animals, I just started this week, is when we do have chipped animals, because what I'm finding, and I actually had a conversation with the young lady sitting to your right. Conley, yes. I just didn't want to say, I didn't want to say your name. I didn't want to have, but we talked about finding chips and how chips can move, and there's been occasions where those have been missed, and so I'm trying to mitigate that. And that was brought to my attention by her. So that's something that, we're cognizant of, and I'm, okay, well, when it comes to scanning for that, we're not just gonna, scan one place. We're gonna scan overall just in case they have moved. Like we talked about, it was maybe an older dog that, for several years it had that, and over time and it moved. But
So you're saying for chip dogs, it's gonna be a 6-day straight hold, or what are you, I guess I'm just trying to make sure. I
yeah,
understand what you're saying.
well, yes, I have no intention of changing that 6-day on chip, that like what we had been doing. I don't have any intentions of changing that. But what I am doing is I'm actively going through and making, we make calls, and sometimes we just get a voicemail and we leave a message. But just one call and leave a message, and then we don't hear anything. So over this week, I believe we ran the list. I don't want to say the number because I don't know the exact number, but I know it was over 20 animals that had chips. But some of them, the information's not good anymore. So we just started calling back through. I'm like, well, let's call back through and try to get in touch with as many people as we could. In a couple of cases, we found out that like the chipped owner is deceased. But we had a number, and we were able to get to somebody else that was like a family member, and they were like, oh yeah, that person, but yeah, I mean, that was whomever's dog, we'll take it, type thing. So we didn't have great success with that callback, but it was just the one time this week, and we're going to keep doing that. But we did get 2 that previously hadn't responded. So we're going to continue to do that, to try to call through those and try to get those out as quickly as possible. And I will just reiterate, just for the sake of it being, live stream for folks that happen to be watching, I think everybody's in agreement, to please have the animals chipped, and please update the information, because that's one of the biggest barriers that we find with chips, is the information's out of date. Or we'll call that person and they'll be like, oh, I rehomed that animal. I don't have that animal anymore. But I don't, I only know the person's name was Joe, and we have no way to get a hold of this person. So without the updated information, we run into that barrier a lot. So, but to specifically answer the question, no, I don't plan on making any changes with that from the 6 days that we've been doing.
Speaking of microchips, maybe I could make a request that that's something that the media help us with, is getting the word out about the need to update microchip information. Because outdated microchip information is unfortunately leading to a lot of deaths. So that would be very helpful. We can, there's a website you can look up a microchip number at, and so if people look up their animal's microchip number on that website, it tells what company it's registered to. And then people just have to call the company, and the website gives the company's phone number. You call the company and you just talk to them and make sure that the information is up to date. And I believe you can find the website by just Googling microchip lookup. And then if you need your animal's microchip number, check the adoption paperwork if you still have it. If you don't, then talk to your own personal vet. Sometimes vets that don't know you have concerns about privacy information. But yeah, if we could help get that word out about updated microchips, that would be awesome.
And that would be great, like on the shelter site or whatever, for information like that to be put out there.
That's a good point. I think
That stuff needs to be out there where the public can get it. People don't watch the news, people don't, aren't on social media, whatever, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I do want to clarify for anyone that has, that someone doesn't know, that the state only requires 3 days. The city of Wichita has been very generous, and they have made the decision to keep them 6 days if they have some sort of ID or something on them. So that is not a state requirement that they have to hold them. Okay.
And the pet owner though, like, it's reassuring. And especially because I don't keep my cats collared because they're inside only, and so their microchips are the only option. So, and other, I mean, by their behavior, they're under socialized enough, if the rescues have described it right, if I'm remembering. I'm not supposed to say firm or feral, I was told just say under socialized, but they act feral. And so, without that microchip, people would assume that they're on well, except for Marty's weight, but.
Yes.
I would just say, that, yeah, we run into, I wouldn't be able to give you a percent, but we run in, unfortunately, into a what I consider a high number of times where the information's not updated, and or they've rehomed it, or what have you. So yeah.
All right, I have a question. So you have a 6 days, so but on day 3, you find out it's been rehomed or the information isn't any good, do you go ahead and release?
If I
or
can
do you hold it
determine,
to 6
if I
days?
can determine to the best of my satisfaction that I just don't have any way to find out who this owner is. And I mean, it's a part of the police department, so we have access to our records management system there. So it's not like I just turn to the chip, or I just turn to, maybe that information in the chip, that animal's been in here before to the shelter. And then I have my internal records management system at the animal services, bureau. But so I have some different avenues to look for that information. But if I've exhausted absolutely everything and we're beyond that, the time that the animal can be transferred, then I want that animal transferred. I mean, I want to be so you want to be as fair as you can. But if I've exhausted everything I have and I don't have anything, or I've called that last number and after that given amount of time, I haven't gotten any response, I want that animal to go somewhere. And so if it's transferred out and goes,
Can you track off of the rabies tag?
I mean, we look at those as well. We can, and we do that too, but
They're registered.
yeah, the volume of those that come in isn't huge, and I don't have a tracking. We note that when they come in, but the only way I can go back at a later time is to actually just go physically through each kennel, which we've done. But yeah, when those come in with the tag, whether it's sometimes they'll come in with just a name tag. I mean, if they've been in our system before, then that's great, but if they come in with a rabies tag or something yes, that's.
Well, I have a new dog, and the vet's name is also on tag.
Yeah.
So
right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
All of them do that.
Right.
And then
And we make those calls, and
Yeah.
and yes, on those, I mean, we're able to do that, and we do that. So Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
another option.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when those come in, that's like, when it comes in, I mean, that's the first thing that's done. The officer in the field still, like, if they get called and they go to the call and pick up the animal, I mean, they're still gonna come back to the shelter and do like an intake, but at that time, and they have that, whether it's a chip or a collar with a rabies tag or whatever. That's when we start looking into that and making those calls. So, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, one more question, okay?
Rachel Phelps, my name. So just for my understanding, so a dog that comes in without any identification, no color, no microchip, and comes in like Monday afternoon. That dog would then be eligible to be euthanized Thursday, close of business. or
No, Friday.
It's eligible for transfer to KHS, to a rescue organization, or to KHS.
But if nobody's gonna take it,
Nobody's tagged it. Is it at risk of euthanasia? Thursday close of business.
No. I haven't put any kind of time frame to that. So when I send out the daily, the daily, I like to call it just today's information or whatever. It previously was titled today's list, but when I send that out, it usually has, like, depending on the day of the week, it'll be the next Tuesday, the next Friday, the next Tuesday. And that's to kind of give that timeline for the rescue to know that deadline for that animal, that's not a deadline for euthanasia. That's a deadline that I can't guarantee that the animal will be there. So you can call it that, I guess, but that doesn't mean on that date at this time that's going to be the result.
But they're at risk at that time.
They're
That
at
point,
risk
you
at that time, and that's why that's presented that way. So that gives the urgencies to the rescues that they know that on the next Tuesday, the next Friday, the next Tuesday, or if it's the next Friday, Tuesday, Friday, depending on the day of the week, they know that the urgency is there for those animals because those deadlines are coming due. And it's generally, again, it's how we get full, and then it's how we get disease, and then the worst case scenario that I'm fighting through right now because of that being full and high intakes and sickness is, then that leads to this higher than certainly that I think is I don't like it. I just say it that way. But then that's what leads me. I have these KDA, just tracking that, but I'm just saying, so then I have that situation. So the only way to really avoid that, other than what I'm trying to do now, is trying to push, calling these and, trying to get moving, trying to get the 3-day versus the 5-day, and then trying to get tags on there so that everybody has fair chance and not have this. I feel like that there's been kind of in people's mindset, they've been operating under the thought process that if it, it has this KHS tag on it. Okay, well, it does, but it's well past that date. And so that animal's up for grabs. So I wanted to try to make that somewhat clearer, that that's my intention. And so it's not just the 3-day to try to move animals quicker, but accompanying that, it's also that if I can get other groups to tag it, that I can get it out of there, because I know KHS can't take that volume. And so I want others to tag it and get it out of the shelter. That's what I want to see happen. To specifically answer the question, I mean, are they at risk? They are at risk, but it doesn't mean that at that date and time, like close of business, for us, 6:30 PM, that at 6:30 PM, that's what's going to happen. It just means that the longer that animal is there, more susceptible to illness, the fuller I get, and the problems that I'm having now, I would continue to have. So I have to start reviewing those things, and I have to start trying to make decisions on what's been there and how long it's been there. And so those deadlines are to let organizations know I need help with these because they're coming up, and they're a priority. And that's why they're at that date. And we're trying to give that next Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, so that there's kind of like a 10-day window, or, an 8-day window or whatever there, that people have ahead of time to know these are my concerns. These animals listed here are the concern because that time is coming up. And once that time comes up, I don't have like a set time. It's just based on how full am I How long has an animal been there and what are my current conditions? Those are the ways that I'm making those decisions. And when I start making those decisions, it's based on the parameters of, length of stay is the number one parameter, but I start looking at, we'll take medical KDA out of the equation because those I don't have a choice with at the moment, but going to the other, I'm gonna look at behavior. Because those are my most challenging animals to get out because there's something going on there that's been assessed and somebody has, made that determination. So those are the most challenging. And then next I might go, I go with medical, because it's another huge barrier. There's an expense there, there's something. And then I move on to resources that, it's just an animal that's been there a long time or that it requires extra, like I said, kind of example of an elderly animal. And so I take those in each of those categories, then by length of stay. And I do that to try to manage the flow in and the flow out because I don't have any control over what's coming in and I have limited control of flow out. And I have to have some capacity in there that I have a little reserve area to play with when I have a high intake situation. And so this is kind of from when I was here 2 months ago when we talked and, at that time I was limiting things to just medical situations and dangerous dogs because we didn't have computers and I was concerned. I didn't want anything, I wanted to make sure that we were just sticking to the bare basics. But as intakes continue to rise and I continue to not do that, and then so you start getting illness and then you have to start making those decisions. So, but that's how I base it. But that's what all that means, and that's how I'm looking at it. But those dates that's not an indicator of that moment. That day, that doesn't mean that that's that. That's to let people know we've got to do something because after that, I have to start looking at things and make decisions, and I can't make any guarantees. So I want people to know that that's kind of I have to give some kind of a cutoff date. So that people have that in their focus.
And I want to let everybody know that since Lieutenant Neinstead has been here, I have found him to be wanting to err on the length of stay. And I think that you guys need to not worry about the fact that he's going to just jump and just euthanize something because he just wants to euthanize it. So he takes time. It's difficult as a new person that comes into a situation like this. The one thing that they don't want to do is to euthanize. And so they try their best not to. And so you guys don't need to worry about him jumping the gun because he just wants to kill animals because this is not the person that he is. Okay, let's go on. Okay. We got to go on to public comment. We have Diana Tedlock. You got, huh?
My good.
You can sit here, you go back.
Like my first.
Okay. You're off the hot chair, okay? Okay, Diana. Yes.
Well,
Okay, I haven't had a chance to look at the numbers and the different statistics and different categories, but I will say if we do back it up, if you want to back up to March when the KDA started kicking in, I'm going to just use dogs, I guess, for right now. But if you look at starting, let's just say September of last year, the euthanasia rate for dogs was 19.62%, then 18.72, then 29.43, then 23.95 in December. In January, it was 26.68, and February, 23.96. We have not been at those rates since 2013. So something is not working. So I just want to say I have to look at the other. I know you're pulling those out, but we can go back before this KDA kicked in. And we have, the euthanasia rate has skyrocketed. The marketing on the animals is basically, from what I can tell, that's being done from WAS is there's the today's list, which I think you've committed now to putting that out at least twice a week. The first time that was put out in weeks was like July 1st, which each and every year, 4th of July comes, we have the same issues. Every 4th of July, we know there's going to be an influx of animals, but there was nothing done for weeks before that. I mean, we should have been marketing, we should have been getting these animals, we should have been getting the shelter cleared in prep for 4th of July. The first time in weeks a today's list was put out was July 1st. That was too late. So yes, we have a huge increase. The other method for, I guess, marketing the animals is Trillo, which we looked at that. If you go out there and look at Trillo, which is limited, only 2 rescues have signed a contract. Think there's 5 dogs out there right now. Yeah, you can look at the today's list from the 16th and you can see there's a lot more dogs out there that's, on a deadline list. Yeah, there's 5 on Trillo. That's it. If you go out there and you look at 24 Pet Connect, you say that's the way to market, but rescues are busy. They don't go out there shopping for dogs. So you go out there and you look, and I did not look, the timing wasn't right, but I looked on the 11th when today's list came out, and inventory at open was 183 dogs. Yet the dogs listed on 24 Connect was 142. That's a delta of 41 dogs with no visibility. He also made this statement, I think, that you said you're not including the KDA dogs on the today's list. I understand that we have the regulations that have come down on the contagious dogs, but there are ways that those animals can still be helped. They can go to a vet and get treatment. So by completely excluding them from any visibility, because they're not on Trillo, I don't know if they're on 24 Pet Connect, but they're not on 2 of the 3 methods that they're marketing these animals. So those animals really don't have any chance. Even if a rescue would want to go in there, they're not seeing them. I mean, they're not seeing them. The today's list shows one little line item. This dog, this cat, when it came in, that's it. There's no marketing. There's no human touch to show what this animal is. I mean, beauties used to go in, and I know every, Tuesdays and Thursdays every week. And they touched that inventory. They put a face to that inventory. They marketed that inventory to rescues across, out of state. I mean, if you look at the distribution list now, the today's list, there are 15 rescues on it. Yet the distribution list, when they wanted to get rescues to sign a contract, was 181 rescues. So we had decided for a self-imposed contract to exclude the delta between 181 people on distribution down to 15. Now, how is that right? How is that marketing these animals? It is not. It's not doing any justice to the animals.
You've got about 30 more seconds, 30 seconds left.
Mitigate medical behavior visibility risk. So, okay. And then also, I guess everybody is aware, HOTUS has canceled their contract, took a month to get the new one out there. So it'll be interesting to see how that is processed and how that comes to be. And I've sent a couple emails on HOTUS charges and stuff that I still haven't got a response on that I would like that on. And I can send those again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did a good job. It's up. Okay. Next person up is Tony Wenger.
Hello, Tony Winger. And if it's okay, I'll remain seated. I'm
Yeah,
not
we're very
tall, so if
casual
I stood,
today.
it wouldn't matter.
Mhm.
Can you hear me? Is this thing on? Okay. I've been coming to these meetings for several years now. And I just want to say that I think this board does really good work. I'm really, really impressed with some of the things that have happened in this board. However, a lot of the good work that you do goes unrecognized. And I don't know if it's the police department holding it up. I don't know if the city manager, city council, but, and 2 specific things I want to talk about. And one is, back in 2022, and I'm not sure the month, but this board recommended that the city of Wichita, not allow the sale of puppies and kittens in pet stores. And here we are 2+ years later, and nothing's been done about that. The other thing that's happened was May of 23, a little over a year ago, the licensing committee recommended 14 different recommendations to this, and it was passed by this board to license animals, to change the licensing structure, requiring microchipping. And a lot of these things were recommended to help the shelter identify animals that come into the shelter so they can go back home. And crickets. I thought I heard several months ago that that was going to council in June, and I haven't seen any of that happen. So I want to say, good work, board, but city, where are you? And the licensing, if we increase that, there's a lot of revenue that would come into the city as a result of that. So it makes no sense to me that it hasn't been acted upon. I also want to say that I thoroughly appreciate the efforts by Lieutenant Neinstedt to come into the shelter like he has, understand the process, and do the best work he can for the animals. So thank you very much.
Okay, that's it. Okay, no more signed up for public comments, so we're going to go on next to new business. I didn't put this agenda together. Mike called me and an hour before the meeting said I need to share it. So I'm not quite sure what he meant by subcommittees, because I don't think we have subcommittees. Oh.
There too, but he didn't put it on this.
Well, we're under old business, but
Yeah.
the subcommittees, I know at least the education subcommittee needs to be.
That's an old business.
It needs to be
Regurgitated.
yeah, whatever the word is, reconstituted.
Okay, okay.
So,
Maybe that should, maybe Georgia should have been under old also.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was because this is new business. And perhaps maybe it was a subcommittee about looking for some place to change the meeting date, but I don't think,
On there.
but I don't think that we actually formed a subcommittee. I don't think it's under old business. Okay. And then I don't know what he means by updates for website. And I haven't actually, I will tell you that I haven't looked at the website. Have you noticed any changes to the website?
no, I think what this means is changes we need to make to the website. So, so who does the website? Yeah, but I don't know back there. I have face blindness, so I don't.
No one back here does.
Okay, thank you. So.
Police department doesn't have.
What did you, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
it's
what did
the
you say?
city? So it's not even the
The
police
city
department, it's the
controls
city.
the website, the Wichita Police Department does not control your website.
Okay, well, I know who to talk to then. So that, all right,
Okay, so
so, yeah, so I'll
we don't.
contact.
Did you bring this up? Is this what you brought up,
Cause
Elaine?
I didn't bring this up. but,
Okay.
We need the board member list updated, cause I know there've been a few emails we've received, and I know that only you and I were the board members on them, and, that makes me feel loved. But it
Not me.
also makes me wonder, if we just need to get all the other people's information out there. So, and then also, yeah, we were gonna put low cost spay neuter resources on the website. And then, the microchip lookup information is what Diana mentioned. So was there, rescue folks, is there anything else that should go on the website that?
Need to be able to do original licensing of
Yeah.
dogs. So, yeah.
That's, and the licensing stuff, last I heard, the city had workshopped it, but I don't know what has happened after that. I mean, the city council had workshopped it. So, but when they make the licensing decisions, because what it's gonna take is an ordinance change. Then at that point, we can get the licensing stuff on the website.
I can update you on that.
Oh, okay.
So on licensing, on all of those changes, they're shut on this July have a couple dated on there because a lot of the dates are consent dates, not new business. So now it's set for August, I think the second week of August to go before counting. But the licensing changes won't take effect until January 1, because licensing is working with a computer vendor to get the changes made. And one of the things that will happen is you'll be able to apply for a new license, if, assuming the council passes this. And they were supported during workshop. We will be able to apply for a new license online. We will be able to get a 3-year license if you have a 3-year vaccine. So there will be a lot of those improvements, but they're not gonna take effect until January 1 because we need time for the computer again.
That's good to know, and good news, we're getting that in place.
Jan, do you know if it's going to go to the city council? You said sometime in July.
Some weeks, but it got pushed off until August, after the Tuesday.
Okay. And do you think they're going to send it off to the DABs? Are they going to vote on it, or was there recommendation to go to the DABs? Okay.
If it's supported, I think it's August 13th is the date. I've already had any grants. So it's in there, although I have to admit, the reason it takes so long is every time I have, a version of it, I get more suggestions. And then I literally just got more suggestions today. It will not put it off again. I can get the suggestion and you have to put back in again, and still keep that date so far in advance. But that's what happened. So I think I'm done, and then someone else has a good idea. So then back in.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay, so to finish up the website stuff, okay, so Tony mentioned licensing, was there anything else that would be helpful?
We need to be able to find it, because I was looking today and I had to actually search for animal services. I couldn't find it in the police department. I had to search for animal services before I left.
Okay, it's not just me then.
No.
So, all right, okay, so I'll contact the city council folks and we'll get this. Okay.
All right. Okay, that ends the new business. So we're going to go to old business. First thing on the old business is relocation of meeting space. And I don't think we have, I know that, well, George, you said that you had a place that would accept us.
Transit authority said that they would accept this. I talked with the acting director.
Okay.
So, one question I had about, if we're looking for another parking, I mean, another meeting place, we need to make sure it's gonna have free parking after January 1.
Okay. Well,
This is a public meeting, and in my mind, it is unethical to charge citizens or even us to park to attend a public meeting.
Well,
because
if it-
that
okay.
provides a barrier to access.
Well, I know when we had it at the transit station before, there was no charge for parking, but I don't know. I know you had mentioned something, didn't you?
About the library.
Okay, the library.
Has, I just up central location and
I said,
they
yeah.
have microphones, they have tables.
They have everything.
They
Okay.
have everything and they have a lot of parking and they're open until 8.
Okay.
And
So,
one of the questions with the library that I've seen asked, and the last I saw was the Eagle reporter who did the article on the parking, said that it sounds like the library parking may not be free. I don't know if that's true or not.
That'd be something to find out. And
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think
that would be
it should
something to find out.
charged.
okay,
I can't
so
imagine them charging.
I'm going to make a motion to defer this until the next meeting. Okay. And then we'll have some more time to look at it and yeah. This is not something that can just happen like that.
Right.
But I'm sorry that Kelly Jones is not here because she did not know she'd be able to make it. It's very difficult for veterinarians to take off early on a day work. Okay. The second thing on the,
Said she won't be here either until we get it changed, so.
well, she didn't know. Yeah. Well, we can't make any decision tonight.
Let me throw in, I don't think the parking, paying for
Hmm.
parking. Because they can have a stamp.
Yeah, if it's here in the city, you just get something stamped.
Unless
Yeah.
it's one of those automated.
I mean, as long as it's something that we can get
Validated.
validated. But
Well, the,
we just
That's
need to
something to
verify,
check, if it's
Yeah.
gonna be an electronic thing.
yeah,
the
we need to
website.
verify. With the new parking plan, they're reducing the amount of parking too.
well, there's other options such as the Colvin Center that's run by the city. There's no charge for, I'm not saying that's an option. Atwater, Colvin Center, those things need to be looked at. All right. Okay, let's go on to an agenda item that I put on. I put out for everybody, if they didn't get it, a copy of the Colorado Veterinarian Association's stance on no kill and what they call socially conscious animal sheltering and animal community. We've talked about that on this board for several times, okay? And I wanted everyone to understand, because I know that, well, you had a chance to look at it, did you, Nancy?
Yes, I did. I read it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, and at this time, and I've been talking about this for a long time, when you force rescues or shelters to have a no-kill ratio, you put the city that they're in, you put the animals that you're in, and you put the community that you're in danger, okay? In a tough spot. And I'm going to just go over this again for those of you who don't have it, but I gave you copies for you to take so you could look at them. The Colorado Veterinary Medical Association came up with this in 2019, and it was in relation to the no-kill problems that they're having in some of the shelters where they don't want to kill them, so they hoard them, and then they've got all these animals they don't know what to do with. And then, like, there is a shelter now that I'm not quite sure why they're being closed down, but they are closing down. They have to close their doors. So they've got a lot of dogs that they got to place, and we're having a hard time placing those dogs. Hopefully they'll get all placed. Everyone says, oh no, it's got to be no kill. This is a very, very reasonable thing. It talks about, I guess I don't need to go over it with you because you've all read it and you all know about it. Okay. So before we take a motion or entertain a motion to pass this and make the city of Wichita a socially conscious animal community and the animal shelter a socially conscious animal shelter, we need to discuss it. If anyone, how do you guys have any input into that? And then after you have input, then we're going to have input from the people out there, for the
What
gallery.
does it do? I mean,
What we'd like to do is recommend that the Wichita Animal Shelter becomes socially conscious, which then takes them away from the no-kill situation and puts them in this. And this is something that they've done up in Colorado, and it's been very beneficial. And it's similar to K-State, but it's a little bit different. Okay, the K-State socially conscious was more based on do everything you can to keep the animal in the home. Okay. And, have programs like the Pets for Life that Wall has to keep the animal in there. This basically talks about when an animal goes into a city shelter or a shelter, that there are reasons why you should or should not hold on to an animal. And it talks about, it talks about alleviating suffering, considering the health and wellness of the animal, and foster culture of transparency, ethical decision making. These are all very, very good things, and things that the Veterinarian Association plus other rescues in Colorado put in place, because they had a no-kill shelter that was deplorable. They've had a couple of them in Colorado. They said no, the animals are not being taken care of. They're all just stuffed in cages just so they can stay alive. I will just review a little bit about what the reasoning behind this is. The no-kill movement increases, and this is the Veterinarian Association bringing this up. This is not a rescue or a shelter. The no-kill movement increases animal suffering and threatens the public health with unintended consequences. That's what's happening right now, guys. That's what's happening right now. First of all, animals in need are turned away from the shelter because shelters are not able to meet required live release rates if they are admitted. Right now, that's happening. The Wichita, if you've got an animal that you have to get rid of, you can't keep it any longer, you have a 2.5 month wait to get it in here to the shelter. Okay, 2.5 month wait. What happens to those animals that have a 2.5 month wait? Myself, as a rescue person who gets those calls of the people that said, I just got caught by my landlord, and if I don't get rid of this dog tonight or this weekend, I'm going to get kicked out. They can't wait 2.5 months. And what happens to that animal many times is it gets put on the street. Then what happens to the animal gets put on the street? It sometimes is hit by a car, which is what happened to a dog that was stray, or it is becomes a problem and starts to get frightened and chased away, and then it's hard to catch. Or then it goes into the Wichita Animal Shelter, which crowds the Wichita Animal Shelter because it's not a stray. No one's looking for it. It doesn't have an owner. No one is looking for it, but yet it takes up space that a true lost animal should, it makes it more difficult, makes it more problematic with disease and things like that. And the second of all is many times, and this is what has happened, animals languish in cages until they die to avoid euthanasia. There are some people that is so difficult to make that decision to euthanize an animal. And I've been there. I ran the Kansas Humane Society for 14 years. I had to make the difficult decisions, and they are difficult, but you can, does anyone have a loved pet that they want to go into a place where it's going to live the rest of its life in a cage? No, mine wouldn't. I wouldn't want mine to do that. The third one was dangerous dogs are placed in the community or remain indefinitely in shelters because of release requirements. Dangerous dogs, and they did talk about this. Dangerous dogs, if they're dangerous, they should not be released into the community. They're not there. We have so many wonderful dogs that are not dangerous that have to be put to sleep. Why are we worrying about a dog that's going to hurt someone or another animal? The next one is shelters can no longer accept lost or homeless animals in the community because cages are full of behaviorally or medically challenged animals and who cannot be placed in homes. And that's what we're facing right now. We're facing a situation where if Lieutenant Neinstead puts an animal to sleep for a space or whatever, then his no-kill rate goes up. And then he said, and they're still keeping open. I think it was put in place that they will not turn away a stray or an abandoned animal. But right now, if you contact some of the other shelters, they are turning away. They're turning away a stray. They're turning away anything. We can't take anymore. Don't bring them to us. What does that do to the owner looking for that animal? It makes it difficult for them to find that animal. So, I mean, if the cat doesn't come in or if the dog doesn't come in and the owner's looking for it, it's not going to, they're not going to find it if the people that found it said, we can't do it. What do you do with it? Well, I guess I found it, but I guess I'll turn it loose. And this is a good example of this happened when a German Shepherd mix was found. And it was put on Facebook because everyone thinks that all people are on Facebook. And they said it was a lost dog on Facebook, and everyone on Facebook said, don't take it to the animal shelter because they're going to kill it if you take it to the animal shelter. So the people said, they didn't know what to do. They couldn't keep it. So they let the dog run the streets. Well, guess what? Down the line, a couple days later, the owner recognized their dog. They went to get it, but the dog was hit and killed by a car. Had the dog been taken to the animal shelter, they would have found it and it would not have died. And so there's a lot of unintended consequences of this. Don't take them to the animal shelter, okay? First of all, owned animals that that are not stray should not go to the animal shelter. They should have an avenue to go someplace else. It shouldn't take 2.5 months to get them into the animal shelter, to get them into the Humane Society. Wait, I got one more thing, okay? Animal welfare is at risk because shelters are beyond capacity to care. And that makes them all of a sudden, we have sick animals with the KDA regulations. We're having to put more animals to sleep because we're overcrowded. Yes.
Has the animal shelter or Humane Society seen this? And have you guys seen have you seen the newspaper? Yes. Have you weighed in on it? No, I have not weighed in. So I guess we love to defer. I'd rather defer. I'm on a different medicine and I'm not trying to piss people off. So I'd rather defer and let them have a look at it, and then the next meeting, what they think about it.
That would be fine, but I'd like to ask I know Lieutenant Purcell has seen this a lot. I know that all the city council people have seen this a lot. And I'm sorry that I didn't get it to you sooner, Lieutenant Neinstead.
Interject here that the no-kill pressure is coming from the popular opinion outside of the shelter in the community. That's where the no-kill pressure comes from. The shelter already does everything it can to keep the youth rate low. I mean, that's not what the general public believes right now, for various reasons, but the shelter already does their best. And the shelter is following K-State guidelines. And I think as long as the shelter is following K-State guidelines, I mean, it seems like we're talking more operational procedures. It's not a philosophical thing. I mean, of course, we want to keep the youth rate as low as possible and save as many animals as possible. Of course, the shelter needs to be open intake. That's the whole point of having a municipal shelter. And so I kind of think we need to keep following the K-State guidelines and keep trying to save as many as possible and be creative like Lieutenant Ninestead is doing. And I don't know that applying a philosophy and telling the community that I also think that telling the community that believes that no kill is a standard is the end all be all. I think that telling the community that no kill, that we are rejecting no kill is not helpful because it's not accepting or rejecting. It's trying to keep the youth rate as low as possible. So I really don't want to go on record as saying that keeping youth rate low is not our goal. And I think that as long as we're following K-State guidelines, we're doing the best we can.
The whole reason that this is that it is a philosophical educational situation. Okay, that's not to say that dogs are going to be killed, right? It has nothing to do with it. It says they're changing the terminology no kill to socially conscious. They're telling people that if you say no kill, and people and rescues absolutely say no kill means no kill. We're not going to kill anything. Everything's going to be saved. And it's been on Facebook where it says no animal should die. And this talks, oh, just wait. And so this situation changes. Instead of the no kill is actually sort of being phased out because they're realizing it's causing more problems than it used to. Because we are doing all these things that they wrote down, the Veterinary Association wrote down, is happening in places, okay? And I believe that Wichita Animal Shelter is the only shelter who still remains open. I know that many of the shelters, the municipal shelters, are not, and we didn't used to. There was a time when the Wichita Animal Shelter closed their doors and said, nope, you found that cat, you can't take it. Nope, you found that dog, we're full, you just have to go take it and turn it loose. Let go, just let it be. And thank goodness Lieutenant Purcell changed that thought. He says, we're not going to turn people away. So I think that this right here is we don't have to pass it today, but I think that if you really look at it, there's nothing wrong with this other than the fact that it says that there are things that there are reasons why you might want to euthanize humanely an animal rather than have them suffer, and that you don't have to form this situation where not one animal can be put to sleep.
Well, I think it kind of goes in line with the care.
Capacity for care, yeah.
And I don't see it. I think there needs to be some education to the public after reading the social media for the last 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're not the ones using the no-kill language, focusing on the no-kill language. We're not the ones.
But they're accusing.
Right, and so it's
all
not,
the
so
time.
I don't see how adopting this does anything but antagonize people. I don't see how saying we're not gonna be no-kill at this point does anything other than antagonize people.
We're not.
Because what it does is it sends the message that we don't also want youth rate to be as low as possible, and we do.
No, that if you would read the first 10 up there, it says that it's going to keep it low. But what it is taking out the no kill and saying socially conscious, which means that you're going to do everything you can. And if you look at all the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, there are things. I just read what they said, the no kill quote, definite no kill, you can't kill anything, what that happens. The socially conscious does say, ensure every unwanted or homeless pet has a safe place to go and a shelter to care for. Place every healthy and safe animal. Access to medical and behavior needs of homeless animals and ensure those needs are thoughtfully addressed. Align shelter policy with the needs of the community. Alleviate suffering and make appropriate euthanasia decisions. That's one thing that maybe some people would not like, but it's a good thing for the animals. Consider the health and wellness of animals for each community when transferring animals. And that means don't necessarily put out behaviorally problems or dangerous animals. Enhance the human-animal bond through thoughtful placements and post-adoption support. So important, not just handing these animals out, because that's why we're here now, is in 2020, it was everyone take an animal to save an animal's life. Now we're getting a lot of those animals back. And we're getting a lot of the babies from those animals back. It says, make sure that when you place an animal, that you have done a very thoughtful job of doing it, because it doesn't do any good to say, here, take this animal, and then have the animal come back to animal control. And last is foster a culture of transparency, ethical decision-making, mutual respect, continual learning, and collaboration. It's not saying that what it's doing is changing the classification from no kill to socially conscious. It doesn't say socially conscious means now you can kill everything. It doesn't. It's got very good guidelines. And this is a movement. I think we even had K-State come down and sort of talk to us about this social, because they're doing the socially conscious. And they just, in fact, one woman talked more, and then the other guy started to come up and say, hey, it's okay. There's some animals that do need to be euthanized. So this is something that is an educational tool. But, I don't know if
How the shelter operates.
I think the majority of what we're changing is because the way that's structured is, they're two very similar philosophies. In essence, both have the same thing in common, where you're trying to save the most number of adoptable animals. One is you have the no-kill move, which is kind of been listed to believe that no animal ever should die, and you have social responsibility. But that's fair. You believe it can be fair.
So if we're doing capacity for care and versus this, and the only thing that would change is the reporting. I mean, I guess I don't see the point. I think that what we're doing with capacity for care is what we should be doing. Maybe that's my bias as the daughter of a retired hospital administrator who grew up knowing that capacity for care is how you run, whether it's a hospital or a shelter or whatever. But I don't see, I'm concerned that if we start saying that if the public is demanding no kill, and we say, oh no, we're not gonna be no kill, then what they do is they say the two negatives make positive, and I'm just thinking about the public assumptions and the fact that the public animosity is already so extreme that I don't know that we need to have a discussion like this if we're already doing everything we can to ensure the largest number of animals possible gets out alive and the smallest number possible euthanized. I'm just.
Well, one of the things that I see is that the first thing they say, this is a kill shelter. This is not this is a kill shelter. Okay. This is socially conscious sheltering. Okay. Now the terminology, you guys may not be interested in this. I think it's something that I know that the CVMA and Denver Dumb Friends League and a bunch of rescues up there, they said this terminology changes the way you look at how you have animals. Not that you're going to kill anymore, but you're going to say that if you do have to, and the capacity for care, I will tell you right now, has caused so much problems for the shelter by the capacity for care, because that means that some animals have to die. And having it use capacity for care or the socially conscious, where you kind of tell you what's happening, they're basically the same thing. But you can't say we're going to be a capacity for care shelter. We can't be a capacity for care community, but we can be socially conscious, thinking about what's done. It is a terminology. It is a philosophy, just like the no kill was a terminology and a philosophy. And we're trying to get rid of that terminology and philosophy.
For every possible animal that we have the capacity to care for. And I mean, but the whole thing with terminology is it only matters if it's used.
I think it complements each other. And maybe diverse. Yeah, and I think as far as the public, they need some education.
But
That is, and I think that needs to be started so that
And-
some of the negativity and to stand up for.
And
the-
again, we can make,
Don't know that. Maybe there's a certain part of the public you'll never convince of anything. But there's other people that they don't know. They don't know what goes on
These first aid,
unless they're reading social media. And maybe we can change some of their minds through some positive
I'm
education.
okay, Rich, I mean, Rick,
well, I mean, it sounds, these first aid things are things that I already see being done at the shelter. I don't know anybody who's kill when it comes to an animal. Everybody that I know who's involved in this or in rescue or any capacity with animals has had an encounter with an animal that's changed them. And they recognize the immense importance that animals, companion animals, have in the life of human beings. No one is anti-kill, but I do think that the bottom, while it may be factual or have some merit to, as a concern, it doesn't need to be stated. I think it's a little too in your face, what you were saying.
that has nothing to do with socially conscious. That just is their reasoning for changing to socially conscious. That's their reasoning behind it, because that actually is happening all over the place.
Say that that's the reason to change as much as it brings it into line with what is really in people's hearts. We are socially conscious. We know that animal welfare does not go anywhere without human welfare. Right? You have to look at both of those things. That's why I think a lot of times we waive the fees on reclaiming an animal because we understand the value that that animal has in that family, so we let it go back. Right? So that's what we're trying to bring. It's more relevant to our situation in Wichita, where capacity is there is a hard line to be drawn. This is why we have so many people in the public scrambling to alert people about animals that are in our shelters. There's a lot of groups that do that, right? We get emails, we get Facebook posts all the time, death row, it's not death row. Maybe it's more localized than what bullies did, but the beauty of the beast did.
Well, one of the things that it does is it takes away what Lieutenant Ninestead had to say. Well, you've got it to be a no-kill shelter, you've got to be under 10% euthanasia rate. And the other people, no, 10% euthanasia rate isn't even acceptable. And then he doesn't have to worry about his euthanasia rate. He can say that, but he cannot have that be held against him by saying he is a kill shelter. All right.
That's the goal that should be reached for, the same way that Tedlock talked about our planning in advance. And we know that these situations are, July 4th comes around every damn year, it's like with the homeless, winter comes around every damn year, why are you telling us now you need an emergency shelter? Right? We have to be on our toes for this stuff, but we can improve every day in every way that we communicate about animals in our community, but we cannot turn people away from taking an animal to a shelter if they're not chipped. But that is, I think about my little Yorkie that snuck out, blind and deaf. And thank God someone picked her up in the middle of the road and took her to our old vet. And she was scanned and she got it back to us. But had that not been available, I want to know that there is a shelter space available if at all possible, not because KHS has tagged an animal and decided, well, can you hold it for a few days? You know, I want there to be available kennels, right? And we can't, and that means I can reach to them in all that panic. I can go to the animal shelter. I don't have to be afraid of taking someone's animal to the animal shelter, right? This is how we're living our lives, man, you know? And we can do better with how we treat them, but we all have to be on our toes. This dovetails with what we have. And while this may have something to do with it, I agree that that's not the right angle. People are already doing a lot of this stuff. Right? People are already doing a lot of this stuff in the shelter and in the streets. So. Yeah.
I think you raised your hand.
I just wanted to make a comment that changing from no kill to socially conscious. The reason for it is because people need to know this, the public needs to know, they need to know that we don't have a shelter that can take in animals and have a euthanasia rate of under 10%. Police department, in your budget, you got the performance measures, what's your number one performance?
That was the, second.
Yeah, below 10%. They've got it in the budget document. So what does the public expect? The public expects that they're gonna take 90% of the animals that come into the shelter and find a good outcome. And that is impossible, and the public does not know that. And that's what the socially conscious might help the public to understand. That if I'm not a responsible pet owner, and my dog or cat gets in the shelter and I don't go find it, and there's a chance it could be euthanized.
Well, my concern is that saying we're socially conscious is not gonna make a difference if the loudest voices in the room on social media are telling everybody that we're wanton killers who don't care, who are just all sorts of bad things, because yeah, I mean, the narrative is that the shelter is death row, and I don't know that we can affect things without people in the community willing to be open to making that change in mindset. And unfortunately, we on this board are not the ones who determine that. There are voices louder than ours in the community.
Well, I think that there are a lot of the public that would understand this, that are not rescues. And the sad thing about this board right now is that it is basically seen by not the public that Animal Services represents, or, but by the rescues who are involved, but not the general public. And you've seen this with dogs right at large or aggressive dogs. There is I understand, but you're all tied with rescues, okay? You all work with rescues, okay. All right, I won't get into that. Anyhow, but there's a lot of the public that will say, this makes sense, so we need to stop saying no kill. We need to stop saying social conscious. But it's just a terminology, and it's a way of educating the public.
Best way of proving the mettle of any of this is by the numbers that the shelter puts out, right? I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, what are the numbers? And that's what we should all be working towards doing, is creating a no-kill. Who cares about the label, man? It's the work. It's hard work. But that's the best way to get around, is show the numbers in the shelter. And
The numbers in the shelter will always be over what no kill says recommends, okay?
Last decade.
I understand, but now you have to say the last decade is not like what's happened since COVID. Okay, every shelter in the nation, every rescue in the nation is being overrun with animals. It's not just the Wichita Animal Shelter. Yes.
So it has nothing to do with the timing of that contract being put out and all the rescues opted out.
What?
There's nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Nothing. I've been talking about this since 2000. Okay, that's fine.
asking if the rise in euthanasias had anything to do with putting out of the asking people to sign.
Oh, I thought you meant this me bring this. Okay. I'm not going to answer that because I don't know. I guess Lieutenant Purcell, he could speak to that, but that's off the subject right now because we're talking about just this. Okay. Yes.
But I would just encourage people to look at these and think about the cost involved, if any costs are involved, like this post-adoption support. Like, I don't know that this is for our shelter to adopt, we're not forcing this on anybody else. So this is what would this cost?
It doesn't cost anything to make sure that you don't hand the animal out. And the Wichita Animal Shelter does not do adoptions, so they're not involved in that.
So I don't know what they're doing.
Okay, so there's been the motion made to yes. All those in favor, raise your hand. Yes, next month, next submission. Huh? Yes, just defer it. All right. Now let's go on to the last item of the agenda, and that is, two. We've already had an update on the licensing subcommittee.
I have something about the licensing. I want to piggyback off of what Tony said, and I apologize right now, my medicine wore off. So With that being said, I talked with a city councilor just before we came in today. And they said if I could prove that it would be beneficial to the city, like bring some income in, that he would entertain it. One of our 14, we had 14, items, or whatever, items on our proposal. And they didn't, and she's gone now, but she didn't take them all. She took most of them, but we wanted to license cats. And I should have said that real slow, but we wanted to license cats. It wasn't gonna be a big license, but we wanted to give them equal footing with the dogs, and they didn't listen to us. So we need to, in this city, if it's got some income coming in. Now, mind you, most people aren't gonna license their cats, but the ones that know it's against the law not to, will. There's only 20% of the people licensing their dogs, which I think pretty much everyone knows you're supposed to. So we'll get some income. So I think I approve that. So talk with your city councilors. I know too, it's not my city councilor that I talked with, but he's on board with that too. If they could see some money coming in for it, then I think they'd be able to put that on. In the 20th, August 20th, it's done. So if you go to 13th to talk, it's too late, because we gotta get it to them the 6th, 13th, and then the 20th. The 20th, it's done. So we need to make sure we get to our city council. It's not that much. It really isn't.
So, in talking to local veterinarians about cat licensing, cat owners, we are a different breed than dog owners, pardon the pun. And, most of the veterinarians that I have said or spoken with said that, if there is a cat licensing policy in the city of Wichita, that, that people will not take their cats to the vet. Because like I said, cat owners, different personality. So on the advice of the veterinarians I have spoken with, I strongly object. I do not want to do anything that further deters people from taking their cats to the vet. So, I am extremely concerned after having spoken with several vets.
Okay, well, I think this is a null situation because the city's already said they're not going to do licensing for cats, okay? But I will tell you that I'm old enough to remember when there was rabies vaccinations and licensing for dogs, and everyone said the same thing. They won't take their dogs to the vet because they're going to have to be licensed, okay? And that was a big deal. And I can remember when we tried to get the rabies vaccinations for cats, and I can remember being one of 3 people out of a whole thing that was so mad that this was coming up. And I was saying, it's so great. Cats need to be vaccinated for rabies. They finally got it done, and cats are still going in there. Well, they don't keep track of it. Okay. But I will tell you that change is slowly. I'm not going to go any further because it's a null situation. They're already saying they're not going to do cat licensing. All right. Any other questions? Any other stuff? Okay, let's go on to the Education Committee.
We need to reconstitute that. I say we wait until the next meeting when we have more people here. And I'd like to think about it some anyway, just how we go about that, given the vitriol that we receive for any of our messaging and social media. I want to think about how we could go about doing this in a way that would not open us up to attacks.
Okay, I understand. Okay, now then, is there any?
I just want to say that I am personally struggling with being on this board and the amount of vitriol that we get in the community. I was crying before coming to this meeting after seeing a post that was encouraging people to come here and express anger. I am trying to do my best as an individual on this board to represent my district. I am trying to I care about animals. When I go over to the shelter and I look at those animals, when I look at my cats later that evening, I see those animals instead of my cats when I'm looking at them. Like, I can't help but get the images out of my head. And it just, I care deeply about the work of the animal shelter. I care deeply, like Richard was talking about making sure that we have somewhere where we can go and find our pets if they get out. I care deeply about the people who come and talk at these meetings about not being able to walk safely in their neighborhoods. I care deeply about the staff who work for animal services, but yet they go on social media and they see themselves being called killers. You know, I worry about the mental health for staff in the face of all that hate and vitriol. I worry about the state of our country, given that we just had an assassination attempt on a former president, and the vitriol that happens with national politics has seeped into local stuff and issues like looking after animals. And nobody here wants to kill animals. We want to do what's best. But the hate, I believe it's cost me one job in applying for jobs, just being on this board. And I mean, it is hard to take. It is hard to not just give up on making a difference and trying to help things and just say, fine, whatever, you know. So, I, at this point, am committed to staying on this board and trying to help. I want to work with everybody in town. But I can't take the hate. I cannot take the vitriol anymore. I'm struggling and I am trying to help, but I'm not going to be of any help to anybody if, yeah. So anyway, so with that, I you know, said, I think how we handle education, especially given the tenor on social media, is going to be something we need to consider.
All right. Okay, issues and updates. Board members have any reported activities in their neighborhood?
I have one thing to report. Back a few months ago, probably been over a year ago, a friend of mine called, said there was 8 pit bulls in this backyard. So I contacted animal services, they went over, then there was a drive-by that night. And this guy that owned the house, it was the time when you couldn't evict the person, so he couldn't evict the person. So they couldn't get in to mow the lawn, someone turned him in for long grass, so he couldn't get in there with 8 pit bulls or 8 dogs of any kind. So he couldn't get in there, they put a bench warrant out for him, and you probably saw it in the news. And he went out to drop his wife off at the airport, and he was leaving, he got pulled over. And they checked his license and they saw that he had a bench warrant. They took him down, and to go into the jail, he had to get strip searched. So he's suing the city of Wichita because he couldn't get in to mow his lawn because of the dogs. And that's just crazy to me. And I've got calls into the attorney and the guy that it happened to, and I haven't got any replies back, but that's just ridiculous. So I just want to let you know that if they knock on the door and you hear, and they won't answer the door, and it's been reported 9 pit bulls, I think our DA or someone needs to get able to get a search warrant to get those dogs out of there. Because look, they're going to get a lawsuit. You watch how much it's going to be, and I'll report back.
Okay, any other issues? Can I have a motion to?
Since we're live streamed, I want to say to our Facebook audience, that we are your advisory board members. If you have animal issues in the district, please just contact us and talk to us. Our emails are or will be online, and we're here to help. We're here to make a difference. So please talk to us.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Okay, thank you.
That's the one. Oh, I wanted to get a copy.
Oh, yeah.
Grandkids, I was trying to make sure they got picked up from urban air with like. They're there. But yeah. What's the last name? Are you? Oh, okay, okay.
Go ahead, yeah.
Oh, my God, we're not resting.
There might be an extra one.
What she got.
Oh.